Darnell Cross was 42 years old when his wife threw a celebration party for a divorce that hadn't been decided yet. She bought champagne. She called her mother. She sat at that dinner table laughing about what she was going to take from a man she called just a contractor, while Darnell sat across town in a diner booth, already 3 months into a plan she never saw coming. Yvette had retained a divorce attorney 11 months before she served him papers. 11 months of dinner conversations, anniversary trips, and I love you. All of it performance. She was so convinced he had nothing to fight with that she celebrated before the fight was finished. What she didn't know was that while she was popping champagne, his construction company had just landed the biggest contract in its 11-year history. And on the morning the verdict was scheduled, when she stood on those courthouse steps certain she had already won, a pearl-white Lamborghini rolled to the curb, and Darnell Cross stepped out. What happened inside that courtroom would dismantle everything she thought she'd secured. But she never saw it coming, not even close. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The sky over southwest Atlanta was still dark when Darnell Cross arrived at the site. 5:47 a.m. No crew yet. No noise, except the low hum of distant traffic on I-20 and the sound of his boots on gravel. He spread the blueprints across the hood of his truck and weighted the corners with 2 empty thermoses and a socket wrench. Then he clicked on his flashlight and got to work. He did this every morning. Not because he had to, because the first hour, the quiet one, before everyone else showed up, was when he saw things most clearly. He ran his finger along the load calculations on sheet 4, checking his numbers against the county specs. The Alderman Group's proposed site was a mixed-use commercial build in Midtown. 6 stories, parking structure, retail on the ground floor, the kind of project that could reshape what Cross Construction was, not just regionally, but in the city itself. He had submitted the bid 2 weeks ago. He was still waiting on the letter of intent. He capped his pen and walked the site. His flashlight swept low across the poured foundation slab, slow and deliberate. 3 other people had walked this same ground yesterday afternoon. He knew because he had watched them do it. None of them had stopped here, at the northeast corner, where a thin line ran 3 feet across the concrete. Pale, barely there. Easy to miss if you were moving fast or looking at your phone. Darnell crouched down. He pressed his thumb to it, felt the faint give. He stood up, pulled a stick of blue chalk from his breast pocket, and drew a clean circle around the crack. Then he opened the worn field book he kept in his jacket and wrote the location, the date, and 2 words: check before pour. That was the job. See what others walked past. Fix it before it became a problem. He had been doing it this way for 11 years. Cross Construction had started with 2 men, 1 truck, and a trailer full of borrowed tools. Darnell was 31 then, fresh off a decade of working job sites for other people, learning every system, every material, every mistake that supervisors made when they stopped paying attention. He had saved enough to go out on his own. Not comfortably enough, but enough. 12 employees now. A yard on the south side with 3 company trucks and a forklift. A real office, not a folding table in a storage unit. A regional reputation built entirely on one thing. Darnell Cross did what he said he would do. He had never borrowed against the business, never overpromised a client, never cut a corner he didn't disclose. His father, Odell, a retired ironworker from the same neighborhood, had taught him the trade before Darnell could legally drive. Odell used to say, "The building doesn't care how confident you are. It only cares what you built." Darnell had written that down too, years ago. It was still in the first field book he ever used. By 7:15, the crew was arriving. Boots on gravel, coffee cups, the low voices of men starting their day. Darnell had already answered 4 emails, returned 1 call to the county permitting office, and updated the revised timeline on his laptop. He folded the blueprints, loaded them into the tube on the back seat, and drove home. He noticed it the moment he stepped inside. The house felt smaller. Not in any way he could have explained to someone who hadn't spent 11 years in it. Just smaller. Edited. He stopped in the hallway and looked at the wall where a framed photo had always hung, the one from their 3rd anniversary. Savannah, Yvette, laughing at something off-camera. The nail was still there. The outline of the frame was still faintly visible in the paint. The photo was gone. He didn't say anything. He moved to the kitchen. The ceramic bowl that Camille had given them, cream-colored, too formal for daily use, always sitting on the counter anyway, was gone too. Its spot was clean, wiped down. Yvette was at the dining table with her laptop open, phone face down beside it. She didn't look up when he came in. "Long day?" he said. "Brand campaign." She scrolled something. "It's a mess. I'm going to be in this all night. I'll cook." "You don't have to." "I know," he said. He made rice, baked chicken, roasted peppers. He set a plate beside her laptop without interrupting. She ate without fully leaving whatever she was reading. He ate at the counter, standing, the way he sometimes did when the day ran long. They said maybe 40 words to each other before she said she was going to bed early. He believed her. He had no reason not to. He went to print a contract addendum he needed for the morning. The shared desktop was in the small room off the hallway, a room they called the office, but was really just a desk, a printer, and 2 filing cabinets. He moved the mouse to wake the screen. The browser was open, minimized in the corner of the taskbar, small enough to ignore if you were only looking for the print queue. He almost didn't click it. He clicked it. Hollis and Associates, Family Law. Aggressive representation for the spouse who's ready to move forward. Darnell read the page. He read it again. He looked at the search history. He shouldn't have. And then he did anyway. And the dates went back further than he was prepared for. He closed the laptop. Gently, like it was something that could break. He turned off the light. He went to bed. He did not sleep. Darnell was awake at 4:52 a.m. Not startled. Not restless. Just awake. The way a man gets when his mind finishes processing something while his body was supposed to be resting. He lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to Yvette breathe beside him. Slow, even, unbothered. He got up quietly, went to the kitchen, and started the coffee. He sat at the kitchen table and waited. He didn't have a plan yet. What he had was discipline. The same discipline that kept him from pouring a bad foundation just because the concrete truck was already there. You didn't act until you knew what you were standing on. That was the rule. It had never failed him. Yvette came downstairs at 7:20, dressed for work, bag over her shoulder. She paused at the coffee maker, poured a cup, added oat milk. She moved through the kitchen the way she always had. Efficient, a little distracted, slightly impatient with mornings. She kissed him on the cheek before she left. He smelled her perfume, the same one she'd worn for years. "Don't forget the dry cleaning," she said. "I won't," he said. He sat there until he heard her car back out of the driveway, until the sound of the engine faded down the street, until the neighborhood was quiet again. Then he refilled his coffee and opened his laptop. 3 days. That was what it took. He moved carefully, the way he moved on every job site where the ground wasn't certain. He had full legal access to their joint accounts, checking, savings, the home equity line they'd never touched. He wasn't breaking anything. He was just looking closely. The first day, he found nothing obvious. That almost made it worse. The second day, he found the pattern. They were small amounts, 200 here, 450 there. Once, a clean 1,000, but only once. The intervals were irregular, sometimes 10 days apart, sometimes 3 weeks. Never round numbers, never the kind of transfer that would catch your eye if you were glancing at a statement without specifically looking for something wrong. He printed every page. He organized them by date on the kitchen table after Yvette left for work each morning, and he put them away before she came home each evening. He used a yellow highlighter on the transfers. By the end of the second day, the pages were full of yellow. Third day, he found the destination account. It was listed only by routing number. No name attached in any document he could access. He wrote it down on a notepad, tore the page off, and folded it into his shirt pocket. 14 months. $47,000. He sat with that number for a long moment. Then he put the printed pages in a manila envelope, sealed it, and locked it in the metal box he kept under the workbench in the garage. Thursday morning. He drove to the job site. He parked 2 blocks short of it, in the lot behind a tire shop that was still closed. He took out his phone and called Petra Okafor. She picked up on the second ring. "Darnell, what's wrong?" He told her. All of it. The browser tab. The 3 days of account reviews. The transfers. The routing number. He spoke the way he always spoke. No drama. Just sequence. What he found. When he found it. What it totaled. Petra was quiet for 3 full seconds. That was how he knew she was taking it seriously. She didn't do silence as courtesy. "Don't touch anything," she said. "Don't move a dollar. Don't close an account. Don't shift anything into the business. Don't do anything that looks like you're responding. Do you understand me?" "Yes." "And don't let her know you know." "Already haven't." Another brief pause. "Get here Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Bring everything you printed." He said he would. He hung up. He sat in the parked truck for a few minutes, watching a pigeon work at something on the asphalt. Then he drove to the site. Petra's office was in a clean brick building in Midtown, 4th floor, corner suite. She had represented Cross Construction for 6 years. She knew his books almost as well as he did. She was not his friend exactly. She was something more useful than a friend. She was the person who told him the truth without softening it first. Monday morning, she sat across from him and put a single printed page on the table between them. "She retained Brent Hollis 11 months ago," Petra said. Darnell looked at the page. The date was printed clearly at the top of what appeared to be a legal retainer summary. 11 months. He looked up. The Savannah trip was 2 months after this date, Petra said. "Yes." He didn't speak. He did the math without wanting to. Every dinner, every morning, the anniversary trip he had planned and paid for, the restaurant on River Street, the hotel with the balcony over the water, her hand in his on the walk back. She was already his legal opponent. She had held his hand anyway. "I need an hour," he said. Petra stood without hesitation. "Conference room's open. I'll have someone bring water." He sat alone in the conference room. No phone, no notepad. Just the hum of the building's air system and the distant sound of midtown traffic 14 stories below. He let it come. The grief, real, physical, the kind that sits in your sternum. The rage, quieter than he expected, but deeper. The vertigo of understanding that the life he thought he was living had been, for nearly a year, a set someone else was maintaining while they planned his exit. He sat with all of it. He gave it exactly 1 hour. Then he stood up, straightened his jacket, and walked back into Petra's office. He sat down across from her. He placed both hands flat on the table. "Tell me everything you know about Brent Hollis." The process server arrived at 8:14 in the morning. Darnell was still in his truck when he saw the man standing outside the Cross Construction office door. Mid-40s, clipboard in hand, the particular stillness of someone who was paid to wait. 2 of Darnell's crew were already there. Marcus, his site foreman, was unlocking the side bay. Jerome was loading equipment into one of the trucks. Both of them glanced at the man and then at each other. Darnell got out. He walked across the lot at his normal pace. "Darnell Cross," the man said. "That's me." The envelope came fast. The man said the words, "You've been served," loudly enough that Marcus stopped what he was doing. Jerome turned around. The process server didn't lower his voice. He didn't step to the side. He stood in the middle of the lot and made sure the moment had witnesses. Darnell took the envelope. "Thank you," he said. He went inside. He closed the office door behind him. He sat down at his desk and opened it. He read it once through without stopping. Financial control, asset concealment, disproportionate contribution to the marital estate. The language was clean and precise and completely manufactured, the kind of wording that sounded devastating in a petition and dissolved under actual evidence like sugar in rain. Brent Hollis had written it, or supervised it. Darnell could feel his fingerprints on every line. The requests, a 65-35 split of the marital home in Yvette's favor. A claim against a portion of Cross Construction's annual revenue as marital income. 5 years of spousal support. 5 years. He set the papers on the desk. He straightened the edges, the way he straightened things out of habit. Then he took out his phone and sent Petra a single text. Papers came. "Office. I'll scan and send this afternoon." She responded in under a minute. "Good. Don't talk to anyone about the numbers in it. We'll go through it Wednesday." He put the phone in his pocket. He stood up. He had a foundation inspection at 10. He went to it. Camille Hargrove's house was in Buckhead. A wide craftsman with a deep porch and a driveway that curved. The kind of house that announced itself without being obvious about it. Yvette had grown up in a smaller version of this life and spent most of her adult years trying to fully arrive at it. She pulled in just after 7. The porch light was on. Through the front window she could already see the warm glow of the dining room. Her mother met her at the door. Camille was dressed like she had somewhere to be. Silk blouse, pearls, her silver hair swept back. She kissed Yvette on both cheeks and took her coat. "It's done?" Camille said. "It's done," Yvette said. Inside, Dominique, Yvette's closest friend since college, was already seated at the dining room table, a glass in her hand, grinning. The table was set with the good china. A bottle of Veuve Clicquot sat in a silver ice bucket at the center, already open. Camille poured 3 glasses and lifted hers. "To finally being free," she said, "of a man who never deserved you." They drank. Yvette laughed, bright and genuine and relieved. The laugh of someone who had been holding something heavy for a long time and had finally put it down. They talked about the petition, about the house, what it would sell for in this market, what Yvette's share would look like. Dominique asked about the support payment. Yvette said Brent had been clear. 5 years was conservative, that he'd argued for more in similar cases, and won. "He has never lost a case like this," Yvette said. "He told me himself. These contractor husbands, they don't know how to fight this kind of thing. They wait too long. They don't document." Camille waved her hand gently, like the thought barely warranted consideration. "What does he have, really? A contracting company? Some trucks?" She picked up her champagne glass. "Let Brent do what he does." The diner on Cleveland Avenue had been there since before Darnell was born. Same green vinyl booths, same 2 bright lights, same peach cobbler in the glass case by the register. Odell Cross came in at 8:30 and slid into the seat across from his son without taking his jacket off first. Darnell told him everything. Odell listened the way he always listened. Still, both hands wrapped around his coffee cup, eyes on his son. He didn't interrupt. He didn't react visibly when Darnell mentioned the 11 months, or the $47,000, or the 5 years of support Yvette had put her name to. When Darnell finished, Odell was quiet for a moment. "She thinks you have nothing," he said. "Yes," Darnell said. Odell nodded slowly. He looked down at his coffee. "Let her keep thinking it." Darnell drove home alone. He took the long way. down past the Alderman Group site on the edge of Midtown. The lot was still lit, the construction lights throwing harsh white across the cleared ground where his crew had broken soil last week. He pulled over, parked, looked at it through the windshield for a long moment. All that open space, all that possibility, still waiting to become something. He picked up his phone and called Petra. She answered on the first ring. "The bid," he said. "Push it. I want that contract." The bid went in at 9:02 a.m. Darnell sat at his desk and watched the confirmation email come back from the Alderman Group's project coordinator. One line, "Submission received. We'll be in touch." He read it twice. Then he closed his laptop and went to the job site. 6 months of work had gone into that submission. Not just the numbers. The numbers were the easy part. He had spent 6 months learning what the Alderman Group actually needed, which was not always what they said they needed. 3 dinners, 2 sidewalks, 1 early morning conversation with their VP of development in a parking lot where the man said something honest about what the last contractor had gotten wrong. Darnell listened to all of it. He took notes he didn't show anyone. He built the bid around what he heard, not just what was asked for, submitting it now, while Brent Hollis was running discovery, while Yvette's team was requesting client files and payroll records and 3 years of bank statements, was a choice. Darnell knew it looked like poor timing to people who didn't understand timing. To him, it looked exactly right. Forward motion. That was the answer to everything Yvette's team was trying to do. They wanted him looking backward, buried in paper, anxious about what they might find. He was going to keep building. Petra handled the discovery requests the way a surgeon handles a scalpel, with precision and no excess. Whatever was legally required, she provided. Whatever wasn't, she didn't. When Hollis's office sent an overly broad request for all client communications going back 4 years, Petra filed a response in 2 days that was clean, correct, and gave them absolutely nothing they weren't entitled to. When they pushed back, she pushed back harder. Darnell let her work. He focused on his. He called the Alderman VP twice during those 6 weeks. Not to chase, just to stay in contact the way you stay in contact with someone whose trust you're still earning. He mentioned a subcontractor he'd used on a similar pour in Cobb County. He sent over an unsolicited breakdown of how cross-construction managed weather delays, which was a problem the Alderman Group had run into on their last project. He did these things without being asked. He didn't make them a big deal. The formal award came on a Tuesday by email at 11:47 a.m. He was eating lunch in his truck when he read it. A sandwich from the place on North Side. He read the email. He set the sandwich down. He picked it back up and finished it. Then he called Petra. "We got Alderman," he said. A beat of silence. Then, "Send it to me." He forwarded the email. 30 seconds passed. "Darnell." Her voice had a different quality to it. Not excited, exactly. Focused. "This changes our position significantly." "I know," he said. They met that Thursday, Darnell, Petra, and his accountant Raymond, in Petra's conference room with the Alderman contract spread across the table alongside Cross Construction's current financials. Raymond walked through what the contract did to the company's valuation. Increased revenue projections, expanded payroll, the kind of documented business growth that was impossible to characterize as concealment, because it was right there in black and white, dated and signed before anyone could claim otherwise. At the end of the meeting, Darnell said he wanted to purchase a vehicle through Cross Construction. Raymond and Petra exchanged a look. "Tell me what you're thinking," Petra said. He told them. The Lamborghini Urus arrived on a Friday morning, pearl white, factory ordered, delivered to Cross Construction's main lot on a flatbed just after 7. Darnell was already there. He signed the paperwork on the hood of his work truck while the driver unloaded it. The title was in Cross Construction's name. The expense authorization had Raymond's signature on it. Petra had reviewed every document in the purchase file and signed off without hesitation. It was clean. It was correct. It was, by every legal definition, a corporate asset of a company that had just landed a $4.1 million contract. He drove it through the lot gate as his crew was arriving. Marcus saw it first. He stopped walking. Jerome stopped behind him. Two of the younger guys came out of the side bay and just stood there, hands at their sides, staring. Darnell got out. He straightened his jacket. Marcus said, slowly, "Boss, what is that?" Darnell looked at the car, then at his crew. "The closer," he said. Someone laughed. Then everyone laughed. Then Marcus shook his head and went back to work, and Jerome walked a slow circle around the Urus like he was inspecting a foundation, and the morning got going the way mornings always did, with work. Petra called that evening at 6:15. "Hollis filed a motion this afternoon," she said. "He's claiming the Lamborghini is a marital asset, purchased during the proceedings to conceal wealth from the court." Darnell was on his back porch. The sun was going down behind the tree line. "I know," he said. "Get some sleep," Petra said. "I'll have the response filed by Thursday." Hollis's motion was 4 pages long. Darnell read it in his truck, parked at the edge of the alderman's site, engine off. The city still gray and quiet around him. The language was confident. Asset concealment, fraudulent transfer, deliberate circumvention of marital estate protections. Big words arranged to sound like certainty. He read it once. Then he read it again. Then he put his phone in his cup holder, got out of the truck, and went to work. He had a foundation inspection at 7 and a subcontractor meeting at 9. He ran both. Petra filed the response on Wednesday morning. Darnell didn't ask for a preview. He trusted her the way he trusted Raymond with the tax filings, completely, and without hovering. He found out the motion had been denied when Petra sent him a single text at 4:48 p.m. on Thursday. "Denied. 4 minutes. Call me later if you want the details." He called her that evening. She walked him through it with the flat efficiency she always used when the outcome was exactly what she'd planned for. The purchase invoice. The corporate title in Cross Construction's name. Raymond's signed authorization. The alderman contract award letter, dated 6 weeks before the Urus ever rolled off a flatbed. The judge didn't need much convincing, Petra said. The documentation spoke for itself. "Good," Darnell said. "Hollis knew it was a long shot," she said. "That's not why he filed it." "I know why he filed it." "Then you know what comes next." He did. The procedural hearing was on a Tuesday. Fulton County, 2nd floor. The kind of room that smelled like old paper and forced air, with fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly unwell. Darnell wore the charcoal suit. Not for Hollis. For himself. For the same reason he reviewed blueprints before anyone else arrived. Preparation was its own kind of respect, and he extended it even to rooms that hadn't earned it. Hollis was already there when they walked in. He was polished in the way of men who have spent 2 decades being the most prepared person in a room. Dark suit, silver tie, a legal pad with notes already written on it. He gave Darnell a brief, professional nod across the room, the kind that said, "I see you," without saying anything else. Darnell nodded back and sat down. The hearing was procedural and quick. Nothing consequential changed hands. But Darnell watched Hollis during it, watched the small adjustment, the way the man's pen moved across his legal pad a little faster than it needed to, the way he interrupted Petra once on a minor point and then pulled back when she responded without blinking. Small things, hairline things, the kind you only noticed if you knew what you were looking for. Hollis was recalibrating. Darnell could see it the same way he could see stress in a load-bearing wall. Not a collapse, not yet, but a shift in the distribution. In the hallway afterward, it happened fast. Petra had stepped aside to speak with the clerk. Darnell was moving toward the elevator when Hollis fell into step beside him. Smooth, unhurried, like it was accidental. "Mr. Cross." His voice was low and even. "No cameras in the hallway. No record. You've got good representation. I want you to know I respect that." Darnell kept walking. "Thank you. I think there's a path here that makes sense for everybody." Hollis said it the way a man says something he has said before, many times, to many men who were tired and afraid. "You keep the business, full protection, no claims on revenue going forward. She gets the house and 5 years of support. Everybody goes home clean." A brief pause. "I'm offering you a way out that doesn't cost you everything." He said it like a favor, like he was doing Darnell a kindness. Darnell stopped walking. He looked at Hollis, not with anger, with the same calm attention he gave to anything he was assessing. He took in the silver tie, the confident set of the man's jaw, the slight forward lean that said, "I am used to being the one who ends conversations." "I need you to communicate with my attorney," Darnell said. He turned and walked to the elevator. He pressed the button. The doors opened. He stepped in. He did not look back, but he heard nothing. No footsteps, no response. Hollis was standing exactly where Darnell had left him. 4 days later, Hollis filed a second discovery motion. This one asked for everything. Every client file Cross-Construction had open or closed in the last 4 years. Every vendor contract. Every line of employee payroll. It was a wide, sweeping demand that had no real legal justification. And Darnell knew it wasn't meant to have one. It was meant to drown him in compliance work, to make his clients nervous, to send a message that nothing was protected and nowhere was safe. Petra filed the quashing motion in 48 hours. 3 Georgia precedents, clean case law, a 2-page argument that was precise enough to be almost boring. The motion was denied 2 days after that. Darnell read the ruling at his desk on a Friday morning. He sat with it for a moment. Not long, just a moment. Something quiet moved through him. Not celebration, just the solid, grounded feeling of a foundation that had been tested and held. He set the ruling down. He picked up his blueprints. He got back to work. Petra's office was on the 14th floor of a glass building in Midtown, clean and spare in the way of someone who processed too much information to tolerate clutter. 1 framed print on the wall, a single plant by the window that was somehow always healthy, a desk with nothing on it that didn't belong there. Darnell arrived straight from the alderman's site. Work boots, Carhartt jacket, a faint line of red clay dust along the cuff of his right sleeve. He didn't apologize for it. Petra didn't notice it, or didn't care, which was one of the things he respected about her. She closed the door behind him. She sat down across from him and opened a folder. "My investigator finished the cross-referencing," she said. "And?" She turned the folder and slid it across the desk. He looked down at the document. It was a financial transfer summary, clean columns, account numbers, transaction dates. His eyes moved to the highlighted line near the bottom. The destination account. 2 names listed as joint holders. The first name was Yvette Cross. The second name was Brent Hollis. Darnell didn't move. He read the names again, the same way he read a measurement he wasn't sure about. Carefully, without assumption, making certain he was seeing what he was actually seeing. He was. He set the paper down flat on the desk. He folded his hands on top of it. Petra was quiet. She let the room be what it needed to be. Outside the window, 14 floors down, Atlanta moved through its ordinary afternoon. Delivery trucks, lunch crowds thinning, a man in a hard hat directing traffic around a utility crew. The world completely indifferent to what had just been confirmed inside this room. Darnell sat with it for a long moment. The man she hired to destroy him was the man she'd been building toward. Not just her attorney, her partner. Which meant the deposition strategy, the asset concealment accusations, the process server sent to humiliate him in front of his crew. None of it was just legal maneuvering. It was personal. All of it had been personal, dressed up in legal language and billed by the hour. He exhaled slowly through his nose. "You okay?" Petra asked. "Yeah." He stood. He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair. "Keep it in the folder." That evening, Odell's truck was parked in Darnell's driveway when he got home. His father was already inside. He had a key, had always had a key, and used it the way he used everything, only when it mattered. He was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of coffee already poured, reading something on his phone with the slow deliberateness of a man who refuses to let small screens rush him. Darnell sat down across from him and wrapped both hands around the mug. Odell put his phone away. He looked at his son. "Petra find something?" he asked. "Yeah." Odell waited. Darnell told him. He laid it out plainly, the way he reported problems on a job site. No drama, just the facts in sequence, the joint account, the 2 names, what it meant about the hallway conversation, about the motion, about the man who had looked Darnell in the eye and offered him mercy, like it was something he had the right to give. Odell was quiet for a long time. He turned his mug in a slow circle on the table. Once, twice. "So, what are you going to do with it?" he asked. Darnell looked at his father. "Everything," he said. The following week, Petra called on a Wednesday afternoon. Her investigator had kept pulling threads. What he found this time went back further. 3 years of corporate expense reimbursements, processed through Yvette's employer, flagged as work-related on the internal submissions, client dinners, brand events, market research trips, reimbursed into the joint account, quietly transferred out from there. Weekend stays in Charleston, a spa weekend in the North Georgia mountains, hotel rooms in Savannah, New Orleans, Charlotte. The receipts, obtained through discovery, were specific and dated. Most of them listed only Yvette's name. Some of them listed a second name, Trey. Darnell knew the name. He had a face for it. A man in a gray blazer at a work function 2 or 3 years back, introduced with a handshake and a forgettable sentence. "Just a colleague. We barely talk anymore." He had believed that, the same way he had believed all of it. He sat in his truck outside the Alderman site for 40 minutes. Engine off. The site was quiet at this hour, the crew long gone, the structure rising dark against a pale sky. He looked at it without really seeing it. He didn't cry. He had cried already, in the hours after Petra's conference room, when no one was watching. That part was done. What he felt now was something colder and clearer, the particular stillness of a man who finally understands the full shape of what he has been carrying. 4 years. Brent was the end of the story. Trey was where it started. He picked up his phone and called Petra. "The reimbursement records," he said. "The hotel receipts. The second name." "I have them," she said. "Add it to the folder." He hung up. He sat another minute. Then he started the engine. His phone buzzed on the seat beside him as he pulled out of the lot. A photo from Odell. A restaurant parking lot in Buckhead. Late afternoon light slanting across 2 familiar cars, Yvette's silver sedan and Camille's white Lexus, side by side near the entrance. Below the photo, 1 word. "Ready?" Darnell stopped at the light. He looked at the photo for a moment. Then he typed back. "Almost." The mediation notice went out on a Tuesday morning. Yvette's team agreed by noon. Petra called Darnell that afternoon while he was walking the Alderman site checking progress on the second-floor framing. He stepped away from the noise and listened. "They agreed," she said. 2 weeks out. Neutral conference room downtown." "Good," he said. He went back to the framing. The conference room was on the 9th floor of a building on Peachtree Street. Beige walls, a long rectangular table, water pitchers nobody touched. A mediator sat at the head of the table, a quiet man in his 60s who had the practiced stillness of someone paid to let other people talk. Darnell arrived first. He set a yellow legal pad on the table in front of him. He uncapped a pen. He sat down. Yvette came in with Brent Hollis 2 minutes later. She was dressed well. Charcoal blazer, her hair pulled back clean, nothing out of place. She did not look at Darnell when she sat. Hollis set his briefcase down, adjusted his cuffs, and arranged his papers with the unhurried ease of a man who had done this 100 times in rooms exactly like this one. Petra sat to Darnell's left, a closed manila folder on the table in front of her. She said good morning to the mediator. She did not say it to Hollis. The mediator opened the session. Hollis went first. He was good. Darnell would give him that. He moved through the position slowly, taking his time with each piece, building the structure the way a skilled contractor built a pitch. Foundation first, then walls, then the roof. His voice was even. His eye contact was precise and calibrated, moving from the mediator to Petra to the center of the table, never landing on Darnell directly, which was itself a kind of move. The house, liquidated, with a 65-35 split in Yvette's favor. The logic was simple. Yvette had contributed professionally to the household. Her earning trajectory was upward. The home represented their joint investment. Spousal support, 5 years. Hollis cited Yvette's career interruptions, her transition costs, the standard of living established during the marriage. Cross-construction, a portion of the current year's revenue to be classified as marital income. Given that the company's growth had occurred within the marriage, he laid it out the way a man presents a settlement he considers more than fair, like he was doing Darnell a service just by being in the room. Darnell wrote something on the legal pad. Hollis's eyes moved to it. He kept talking. 20 seconds later, his eyes moved to it again. The pad was angled away from him. He couldn't read it. Darnell wrote something else. Hollis finished. He settled back in his chair and folded his hands on the table. The mediator looked toward Petra. Yvette looked at the surface of the table. Then she looked at Darnell. It was the first time she had looked directly at him since they sat down. He was writing a final note on the legal pad, unhurried, the way he made notes in his field book. Practical, deliberate, finished when he decided it was finished. His face was still. Whatever she was looking for, she didn't find it. Petra opened the manila folder. She didn't rush it. She took out the first document and placed it on the table. The financial transfer summary, account numbers visible, the 2 names highlighted at the bottom. She placed it so the mediator could see it clearly. This is the destination account for 14 months of systematic withdrawals from the joint marital savings, she said. $47,000. The account is held jointly by Yvette Cross and Brent Hollis. Hollis's expression did not change. His hands, still folded on the table, were very still. Petra placed the second document down. This is the conflict of interest complaint filed with the Georgia State Bar. Filed 3 weeks ago. Already in active review. The mediator looked at Brent Hollis. Hollis said, "We would dispute the characterization." Petra placed the third document. Corporate formation records for cross-construction, predating the marriage by 7 years. Full documentation of the West Atlanta real estate investment, structured through the corporate entity, legally insulated from marital asset classification. She placed the fourth document last. 3 years of corporate expense reimbursements processed by Yvette Cross through her employer. Flagged as work-related. Reimbursed into the joint marital account. Transferred out. The receipts are organized chronologically. Some of them include a second name. She closed the folder. "We can resolve this here," she said pleasantly. "Or we can resolve it in open court, where every document in this folder becomes public record and part of the proceeding." The room was quiet. Hollis looked at the folder. Something moved behind his eyes. Small, controlled, and not quite fast enough. Yvette looked at Darnell again. This time, there was no contempt in it. There was something else. Something uncertain and searching, like a person trying to locate the ground after realizing the floor has shifted under them. Darnell capped his pen. He closed the legal pad. He stood. "I'll see you at the hearing," he said. He walked out. Petra fell into step beside him. Behind them, neither Yvette nor Brent Hollis moved from their chairs. Darnell was up at 4:30. He didn't need an alarm. His body had been waking him at this hour for 20 years, the reflex of a man who was always somewhere before everyone else. He showered, dressed slowly, and stood in front of the mirror for a moment with his collar open. Then he buttoned it. He knotted his tie. Charcoal suit, white shirt, no pocket square. Clean, deliberate, nothing extra. He ate a piece of toast standing at the kitchen counter. He drank his coffee black. He looked out the window at the dark street and let the quiet sit with him. Then he picked up his keys and drove to Petra's office. She was already there. Of course she was. The manila folder sat on her desk between them, open. They went through it one final time, each document in sequence, each point of entry, each anticipated objection, and its answer. Petra moved through it the way she always did, without drama, without ceremony, treating every piece of paper as exactly what it was, a fact, documented, ready to be used. When they finished, she closed the folder and looked at him. "Ready?" she said. "Yes," he said. She picked up the folder, put on her jacket, and walked out. He followed. Yvette arrived at Fulton County Superior Court at 8:15. She was dressed impeccably. A deep burgundy blazer, tailored slacks, her hair set perfectly. She looked like a woman who expected to win, which she did, because Brent Hollis had told her so on the phone the night before, and the night before that, and at every point in the preceding months when her certainty needed maintenance. Camille was already in the gallery when Yvette walked through the courtroom doors to check in. She was dressed for an occasion. Pearl earrings, a pressed blazer, the particular posture of a woman who believed she was present for a confirmation of things she had always known. She caught Yvette's eye and gave a small, satisfied nod. Outside, on the courthouse steps, Yvette and Hollis waited for the morning session to be called. The air was cool. Hollis had his briefcase in one hand and his phone in the other. He scrolled briefly, then put it away. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Fine," Yvette said. "Ready?" Hollis nodded. "Good, because this is already finished, whether he knows it or not." He said it with the confidence of a man reviewing a hand he had already played. "These contractor types, they don't understand the process. They wait too long to prepare. They assume good faith will protect them. They walk in thinking honesty is a strategy." He almost smiled. "It isn't." Yvette looked out at the street below. "He always assumed that. And that's exactly why we're here," Hollis said. "And he's about to walk out of this courthouse with less than he started with." Then the sound changed. It came from the street. A low, distinct rumble that didn't belong to the morning traffic. Several people on the steps turned instinctively. A pearl-white Lamborghini Urus rolled smoothly to the curb. It stopped. The engine went quiet. The door opened. Darnell stepped out. Unhurried. Charcoal suit, no sunglasses, nothing theatrical about any of it. He straightened the front of his jacket with one hand and passed the key fob to a waiting associate without looking back at the car. Petra Okafor appeared on the passenger side in heels, briefcase under her arm, and fell into step beside him. Together, they moved toward the courthouse entrance, a straight line, a steady pace, and Darnell walked through the glass doors without once looking in Yvette's direction. Yvette watched him. Her expression shifted in stages, the way a structure shifts when a load-bearing wall gives out. The composure was there, and then it was something else, something she hadn't expected to feel this morning. Hollis said quietly, "It's a rental. Don't let it rattle you." Yvette said nothing. She looked at the empty curb where the car had been, then at the courthouse doors, still swinging slowly shut. She got out her phone and called Camille. "Something feels different," she said. "Stop overthinking," Camille said. "Brent knows what he's doing." Yvette put her phone away. She followed Hollis through the doors. Inside, Darnell testified first. He answered every question directly. No editorializing. No anger working beneath the surface. Just facts, delivered with the steady patience of a man who had been building things long enough to know that the structure either held or it didn't. And his held. The judge asked clarifying questions. She was paying close attention. Petra introduced the evidence in sequence. Cross Construction's corporate formation document. Company established 11 years ago, predating the marriage by 7 years. The West Atlanta real estate investment, structured through the corporate entity. Legally insulated. Untouchable. The documents were clean and organized. The judge read them without comment. Then Petra placed the financial transfer summary on the table. The destination account for $47,000 in systematically transferred marital funds, she said, held jointly by Yvette Cross and Brent Hollis. The judge looked at the document. Then she looked at Brent Hollis. She held that look for a moment. Hollis objected. She overruled him. He objected again on separate grounds, his voice still controlled, still practiced. She overruled him again, this time with a brief and pointed look that did not require explanation. Petra laid down the final set of documents. 3 years of corporate expense reimbursements, receipts organized chronologically, personal expenditures processed as business expenses, money that flowed into the joint account and was quietly transferred out. 3 years of it. Dated, itemized, specific. It did not show a woman who had been financially controlled. It showed the opposite. Yvette's hand found the edge of the table. In the gallery, Camille went absolutely still. The judge recessed for deliberation. 2 hours and 17 minutes. Darnell sat in a hallway bench outside the courtroom and drank water from a paper cup. Petra reviewed notes on her phone beside him. He watched people pass. He did not check the time. When the courtroom doors opened, they went back in. The judge settled into her seat. She looked at her notes, then at the room. The marital home. Liquidated. Split equally. Yvette's request for 5 years of spousal support. Denied. The judge cited documented income, evidence of financial misconduct, and the conflict of interest that had compromised the respondent's legal representation at the root level. Cross-construction, fully protected. The corporate structure held without exception. The $47,000 in transferred marital funds, returned to the marital estate, split equally. Brent Hollis, to expect formal correspondence from the State Bar's disciplinary office within 30 days. Yvette received approximately a third of what Brent Hollis had told her she would walk out with. Camille sat in the gallery and did not move. Hollis stared at the table in front of him. His hands were flat against the surface. He did not object. He did not adjust his cuffs. He simply sat there, looking at the wood grain, while the courtroom began to quietly empty around him. The courtroom emptied the way they always do after a verdict. Slowly at first, then all at once. People collecting their things and finding reasons to be somewhere else. Voices dropped. Chairs scraped. The air shifted from tense to hollow. Yvette moved fast. She gathered her portfolio from the table and turned toward the exit without looking at anyone. Her heels were quick and deliberate against the floor, each step a woman trying to get ahead of something she could not name yet. She pushed through the courtroom door and entered the wide courthouse hallway. Darnell was already there. He was standing 15 feet from the door. Not in her path exactly. Just there, still, composed, his hands at his sides. He wasn't blocking anything. He was simply present, the way he had always been present, in the way she had spent years calling boring and only now understood was something else entirely. She stopped. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hallway continued moving around them, clerks with folders, attorneys on phones, a bailiff crossing the far end, and the two of them stood inside all of it like a room within a room. Hollis came through the door behind her. He saw Darnell and moved to Yvette's side, reaching for her arm. She shook him off. It was a small motion, barely anything, but it was clean and it was final. And Hollis lowered his hand and stepped back and said nothing. Darnell looked at Yvette. "I loved you without reservation," he said. His voice was even. Not soft, not hard. Even. For 11 years. Every single day of it. He paused, not for effect, but because the words were true, and he was letting them be true before he continued. "I worked double shifts while you finished your MBA. I celebrated every promotion you got. I invested in our future like it was the only thing I had. Because it was." He held her gaze. "I never once looked for a reason to leave." Yvette was very still. Her portfolio was pressed against her side. Whatever expression she had walked in with this morning was gone. What was underneath it was harder to name. "I know the date you retained him," Darnell said. 11 months before you served me. I know about Trey. I know the hotel in Savannah wasn't a work trip. I know about Charleston. I know about New Orleans." He said each one the way he marked measurements on a blueprint. Not cruelly, just with precision. "I know all of it." The hallway continued around them. Neither of them moved. "I forgive you," he said. The words landed wrong, from her perspective, and right from his. Not soft, not consoling. They landed like something being set down on a table. "Not because what you did was fine, it wasn't. But because I'm not going to carry it. It belongs to you." A beat. "I'm giving it back." He turned to Hollis. Hollis had the posture of a man who had been doing this for 19 years and was currently revising his understanding of what that meant. He met Darnell's eyes without flinching, because he was practiced at that, if nothing else. 19 years, Darnell said. Just that, for a moment. Then, "I hope it was worth 8 months of billing her." Hollis said nothing. There was nothing to say, and he was smart enough to know it. The courtroom door opened again. Camille stepped out. She had taken longer than the others, adjusting her composure, locating her footing, searching for the posture that fit a moment she had not prepared for. She found something close to it by the time she cleared the doorway. Her chin was level. Her jacket was straight. Darnell turned to her. "You told her I was beneath her," he said. No anger in his voice, none at all. "Every dinner table, every holiday, every quiet comment you thought I absorbed politely and forgot. I heard every word, every single one." He looked at her, not with contempt, not with the satisfaction of a man scoring a point, but with the finality of a man closing a door. "You didn't just lose a son-in-law today, Camille. You lost the only person in your daughter's life who built something real." A pause. "I hope you take good care of each other." He turned and walked toward the exit. Petra fell into step beside him, her briefcase in hand, her heels steady against the floor. Behind them, Camille's voice rose first, sharp, directed at Yvette. Something about Hollis, something about the numbers, something about what was supposed to happen. The words blurred with distance. Yvette's response came back faster and sharper than Camille expected. Then Camille again. Then Yvette, louder. By the time Darnell and Petra pushed through the exterior doors and stepped out into the Atlanta morning, the two of them were in a full argument in the hallway of Fulton County Superior Court. The celebration had folded in on itself completely. The parking structure was dim and cool. Odell was leaning against Darnell's work truck. Not the Lamborghini, the truck he had driven to every job site for 6 years, the one with the Cross Construction logo on the door and a crack in the passenger side mirror he kept meaning to fix. Odell had his arms crossed loosely, his weight easy against the side panel. He looked at his son. He put a hand on Darnell's shoulder. Neither of them said anything. They didn't need to. The sky over southwest Atlanta was still dark when Darnell pulled onto the site. Not full dark, the kind of early morning dark that is already giving up at its edges, the city's glow pressing in from the east, the horizon going from black to something closer to gray. 5:47. Same as always. He backed his truck to the edge of the slab and cut the engine. Sat for a moment in the quiet. Then he got out, set his thermos on the hood, and unrolled the blueprints. The site was empty. His crew wouldn't arrive for another hour and 15 minutes. He liked this part. Always had. The hour before anyone else showed up was the truest hour of the day. No noise, no phones, no questions to answer. Just the work in front of him, and enough silence to think clearly about it. He smoothed the blueprints flat with both palms, weighted the corners with the thermos and his field book, and got to it. The Alderman Group build had wrapped 9 months ago. 3 regional publications ran features on it, 2 trade journals, and 1 Atlanta lifestyle magazine that Odell cut out of the paper and framed without telling Darnell about it until the frame was already on the wall. The building stood 6 stories in Midtown, clean lines, every tolerance exactly where the drawings said it should be. Darnell had walked it on the morning of final inspection the same way he walked every finished job, slowly, room by room, touching nothing, just looking. The second alderman contract broke ground 6 weeks after the certificate of occupancy on the first. Cross Construction had 12 employees when the divorce proceedings started. It had 16 now. 4 new hires in the last year. 2 of them young men named Marcus and Deshawn, both just out of Atlanta Technical College's construction management program. Both showing up on day 1 with their boots already broken in and their eyes wide open in a way Darnell recognized because he had looked the same way once, a long time ago, standing next to Odell on his first real job site. He didn't give them speeches. He didn't sit them down and explain things at length. He showed up before they did, and he stayed after they left. And when they made mistakes, which they did, because that was the job, he walked them through the correction once, clearly, and then moved on. No lingering, no lectures. The same way Odell had done it. He thought about Odell a lot on early mornings like this one. The house he lived in now sat on a quiet street in East Point, 11 minutes from the nearest job site. He had drawn it himself, not from scratch, not professionally, but deliberately. He knew what he wanted. A study with east-facing windows for the morning light. A kitchen that opened to the backyard. Bookshelves in the study built from white oak, cut and assembled by his own hands over a long weekend in January while it rained outside, and he had nothing else that needed doing. It was smaller than the house he and Yvette had shared. Every room in it was intentional. There was nothing in it that he hadn't chosen. He was not with anyone. He was not thinking about it yet. He got up in the mornings and worked, and came home in the evenings and cooked and read and slept, and did it all again, and most days that felt like exactly enough. The Lamborghini sat in Cross Construction's vehicle bay, between client meetings and closing dinners and the occasional site visit when the moment called for it. His crew had named it, months ago, The Closer, and the name stuck in the easy, organic way that good nicknames always do. Darnell had never encouraged it and never discouraged it. He just let it be what it was. He had heard, through the loose and reliable network of Atlanta professionals who know everything about everyone, that Brent Hollis's license had been suspended for 8 months following the state bar's ruling. Formal reprimand, permanent record. His name still came up in family law circles, but it came up differently now, carefully, with a pause before it, the way people say the name of a restaurant that gave them food poisoning. He had settled 2 malpractice inquiries quietly. The phone did not ring the way it used to. Yvette had been let go by her employer 6 weeks after the verdict, the corporate expense fraud having moved through the court record and landed exactly where it was always going to land. She had moved back into Camille's house in Buckhead. Darnell did not know this firsthand. He had not asked. It reached him the way most things reached him now, sideways, from people who mentioned it without meaning to, and he filed it away without comment, and did not think about it again for very long. Trey was gone. Had been gone before the verdict. Brent had his own problems. The man she had built 4 years of secrets around, never called after the divorce was finalized. Not once. Darnell capped his thermos and walked the perimeter of the new slab. The foundation pour had been completed 48 hours ago. Standard walk-through. Check the edges, check the surface, check the corners. He moved slowly, his field book under his arm, the chalk line reel clipped to his belt. He found it in the northeast corner. A hairline crack, narrow as a thread, running 3 inches along the surface, barely visible in the gray pre-dawn light. The kind of thing 3 people could walk past without registering. The kind of thing that starts small and, if you let it go, becomes something else entirely. He crouched down. He pulled the chalk from his belt and marked it. A clean circle, precise, unmistakable. He flipped his field book open and wrote the location, the length, the approximate depth, and the time. He stood up. He looked at the Atlanta skyline going gold at the edges, the way it always did at this hour, the way it had been doing his entire working life, long before anyone knew his name, long before the alderman contract, long before any of it. He picked up his clipboard. He got to work. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.